Hello, I'm Rebecca Dawson, and welcome to this very special annual themes event. It's Themes for 2026. I'm delighted to be sharing with you a message from the field and my team of masters that I've been channeling for over 30 years. This is our most popular event that we do every year, and it's always free. There's plenty of questions that are asked and answered, and we really get a good glimpse into what's happening collectively in the field for humanity, certain trends and themes that we may be experiencing, and also what we're experiencing in our own personal sense of evolution and experience. So I hope you enjoy this message. Keep it handy throughout the year. It's going to offer you a lot of insights as the year unfolds. And if you're interested in learning more about what we do, please check out our website at rebeccadawson.com. There's tons of free channelings and content on there. Also, if you enjoy this video, you may like to subscribe or like it. It helps our message reach more people. And there's links in the description box below to enjoy other offerings that we have for you also. Thank you for being here. Your presence enables this to be experienced. It enables it to be created, and it enables it to take form in the collective field for humanity. Blessed ones, greetings to you. We are with you. Your experience at this time has more to do with how you feel than what you see. It has more to do with how you sense than how you interpret. And it has more to do with how you navigate from that sense than how you look for signposts or certain experiences that are appearing within your reality. For many, in the next 3 months, that is to say, between January and March, you may feel as if you are moving around in the dark. Now, many will say, well, when I'm moving around in the dark, I cannot see where I am going. I cannot easily recognize where I am. But you know from your own experiences in third, fourth dimensionality, when you are moving around in a dark room, you have some familiarity. You have some sense, for example, that within your home, if the lights are not on, you know approximately where the walls are. You know approximately where different rooms within your house are. And so at this time, between January and March 2026, it's like moving around in the dark within the familiarity of what you already know your life to be. So in this way, as you're moving around in the dark, your sensitivities are heightened. You're having to be a little bit more sensitive to where you are walking and what you are feeling for. And in this way, when you're walking around the room of your reality in the dark over the next few months, you're developing a heightened sense of your feeling state. You're also, in this 3 months, deciding what is truly important for me. Because when your centers are heightened like this, but the conditions are such that you can't see to navigate clearly as you normally would towards something, you're going to begin to become very selective about, is it really necessary for me to do this in this moment? Because when all the lights are out in your familiar environment, you perhaps would be doing less. You perhaps will conserve your sense of directionality. Do I really need to go and do this? Or can I wait until the lights come back on? Equally, there will be many during the next few months that are aware that there are things that perhaps you should be doing or you believe you should be doing out of routine or expectation. But you are more interested now in discovering, well, if the lights are out and I can't really see where I'm going, suddenly I'm actually more interested in the tonality and the intensity within which I am feeling. How is it that my internal vision is now really switching on? What is it that I am imagining? What is it that I am sensing within myself? What are the visions and inspirations that are arising? This also occurs when you're in an environment where all the lights are out. Traditionally, in the cycles of human evolution, this has been what humans have experienced as the winter period. And regardless of which part of the planet you currently find yourself in and which season, collectively, this is this period. It's not a period of hibernation, it's a period of awakening within the dark, awakening within your own senses, because the environment is now not cueing you to tell you what it is that you know. So this is an incredibly fertile and powerful time for you between January and we would say the third or fourth week of March 2026. And it's not typical that we are very specific with time range like this, but you are entering a period where it's going to become more and more simple for consciousness leaders to be able to become more specific about certain time sequences. This is because you have, in essence and in actuality, entered a new blueprint of reality since November 2025, whereby it is far easier for those of you who are sensitive and who do have the capacity to be able to see potentials beyond what is presently being shown to you in the now moment. You are now able to have a clearer sense of time sequence. This is a great relief to many of you who are listening in this moment, because many who are listening in this moment have been very confused about time and have been quite disillusioned because you can't see ahead. If you are offering yourselves this complete immersion over the next 3 months to really sharpen your senses, you're going to become aware that as 2026 unfolds, you can have a clearer sense of where things are beginning to reveal themselves in terms of time. So it's not that you are moving out of linear time altogether. It's that your senses have moved out of the requirement for linear reference so that you know where you are in time, but your senses can now begin to see potentials and possibilities with range. And this is what has been challenging humans for at least the last 6 to 8 years, is not having that ability to sense the range. So this range sensing for space and time sequence can really allow you from, we would say, April, May, June, and onwards in 2026 to actually begin to start to have a sense of not direction per se, but a sense for direction. Now, having a sense of direction and a sense for direction is very different, because having a sense of direction means you have a sense of direction for yourself and how you identify in a particular role as a human. For most of you, you have been revealing who you are beyond that role, and the roles have dissolved and disintegrated for many of you, or your lives have unraveled in such a way that you're no longer contained by these roles. So if you're not having a sense of direction for yourself, you're now able to have a sense of directionality in terms of time and possibility, which means you can now start to see and feel within yourself. I have a sense of directionality, or for directionality. We have a sense for directionality that with this particular idea or inspiration, this is likely the highest set of potentials in which it could play out. And this is a wonderful and welcome sense of confidence from May 2026 onwards, where many humans can finally begin to say, with this particular inspiration, with this particular set of of intuitions that I have, I'm now having a clearer sense for directionality with it. This is the confidence that many of you have been yearning for since 2021. 2020, 2021, where it was very difficult to have a sense for directionality. At that time, humanity was still interested in how can I get my own personal sense of directionality back on track or moving in a new way. And this experience for 2026 is now sense of directionality for potentials and time sequence, not for your individual sense of identity. This, in many ways, elevates you as a human to now begin to operate from your state of conscious viewing, where you are now looking out into your reality and looking out into your world and being able to more clearly assess what is the directionality for this potential, what is the directionality for this relationship, what is the directionality for whatever I am feeling that is emerging within my consciousness to create or to become actualized. So you begin to see from what we are suggesting that 2026, after the first 3 months, is the year where humans in many ways begin to become clearer about where they are. Not where they are in time, but where they are in the timescape for actualizing potential. And this generates a huge impetus for enthusiasm that has not been felt by humans for many years. And this new sense of enthusiasm and impetus can bring about for the human a sense of impatience because I can see it. But remember that it is tempered by this developing inner sense for directionality that allows you a sense of wisdom in, well, I can see that this is how it's likely to play out. This is how it's likely to move. And because you're not investing in your identity for being responsible for that happening, you are now positioning yourselves and your consciousness as a custodian or a chaperone for that unfolding, which means you're not making yourself personally or identifiably liable for pushing it along, but rather having the vision for that directionality enables you to walk alongside it. And for many humans, this is the rebirth or the reemergence, the dawning of a new sense of meaning, a new sense of purpose for yourselves, where it is less about your individual endeavor, it is less about a personally identifiable sense of what you are here to accomplish and what it is that you are here to achieve for your own evolution. And it now becomes, what is it that I have the vision for? And how am I confidently and consciously accompanying that vision? Because as you have come to learn in recent years, it is vision that creates reality, not necessarily the mind or the thought trying to integrate the action. So this is truly what we will call 2026, we will call the year of the visionary, the year of vision. 2026, the year of the vision for directionality, new direction. So we want to be very clear with the foundation that we have laid for you, and we'll say it again, that this is vision for directionality of potential. It is not vision of direction for yourself. Very important. So the first 3 months, as you are moving around in the dark room, you really come to know your sensitivity. But you also really come to know the prowess with which you sense. Now, something else that happens within those 3 months is that you realize that you move around in the dark based upon, in the beginning, your memory. I think I remember that this is where the light switch is. I think I remember that this is where the door is. I think I remember that this is where the keys are. I think I remember that this is where this particular drawer is. And in the beginning, you are navigating and you're becoming very aware that you are navigating and moving around based on what you remember. And this is also a beautiful awareness, because in the beginning, you realize you're navigating based on memory. And you're all aware enough to know that when you're navigating based on memory, you're playing in a repetitive loop of experience that's diminishing your capacity to evolve beyond those sets of experiences. So after your initial moving around in the dark, you begin to say, well, I can't remember where things are, so now I actually need to start to rely upon my senses. I'm now beginning to sense where I want to walk. You're now starting to trust. I'm going to feel over here for something. I'm going to move in this direction. I'm not quite sure why I'm going over here, but this is what I am doing. And so after some time in this darkened space, you're now relying less on memory, and you're now really beginning to accelerate your use and your capacity for your senses. This is so important because humans have forgotten how to use their inherent senses for directionality. Humans have been using memory. And when you use memory for directionality, you ultimately keep going around in the same loops of experience. This has been the underpinning of the time loop, if you will, or the repetitive karmic experience for collective human consciousness for at least 300,000 years. And it's largely because you have been taught to rely upon your memory for direction rather than your inherent consciousness, your inherent senses. And you can use those phrases interchangeably. Your inherent sense for directionality is also your cosmic consciousness. It's that source consciousness within you that will always seek to bring potential to actualization. It will always seek a direction that is conducive to accelerated evolution. But memory will not. Memory will keep bringing you the same experiences. So 2026 being the year for directionality from sense, not memory, is going to enable you to begin to really walk in a very new way. And what you will discover is that in your reality, after the March, April, moving into April, moving into May, between April, May, and October, there is a period of time, and we can express this to you because of our view for directionality in this moment. There is a period of time where humanity becomes quite enthusiastic, and perhaps more enthusiastic than you have felt humanity be for some years, where suddenly there seems to be a flush of enthusiasm, a flush for blooming new ideas, a flush for optimism. There's so much that we can do. There's so many new ideas. There's such a sense of possibility that now supersedes what humans have in their memory systems. And sometimes this is felt in terms of, I'm just so excited to be alive. There's really anything that I can do. it can be felt in that way. It can also just be felt within yourself, where daily you are waking up and you are actually beginning to feel yourself in more sense. I can really sense the sun today. I can really sense the sounds of the birds. And all of this, in essence, is what you are feeling when you're actually sensing humanity emerging beyond its history. You are sensing the emergence of humanity beyond its karmic principles. You are sensing the emergence of the collective human consciousness as it evolves beyond containment. And this is 2026. So, what we will call walking around in the dark can be frustrating, but it's also wonderful because now you begin to walk in a new way. And in many ways, it's preparation for your consciousness. So that when the light starts to come back on, when the dawn begins to reveal itself, late March into early April 2026, now you're so used to sensing that everything becomes completely delightful. I had forgotten how wonderful this world could be. And this flush of optimism is likely to be represented in many experiences within your reality. Now, let us be clear that in June, July 2026, in the midst of this dawning, this flush of enthusiasm, you're likely to see a little bit of counteractivity in the structures and systems that require memory and predictability to engage with them in order for them to continue to exist, which is why we say in June, July 2026, there's likely to be a little bit of strain, a little bit of shakiness with the systems and structures that require predictability. So when this occurs, remind yourselves, blessed humans, we are in the flush of optimism and these systems are shaking, not to tell us that we shouldn't be optimistic, but to remind us that this is memory, these predictive systems, and that includes economic systems, are based on predictive models, and they are shaking because there's not as much of the human collective consciousness engaging with them. The optimism is now beginning to supersede the capacity of the systems to contain it. And this in itself is very important because, as we have said, 2026, the year for directionality, this is really now the sense of this human optimism now beginning to create the direction for humanity rather than the predictive models, which is what you have been experiencing. So the expression at this time within your awareness, and now remember we've said June, July 2026, where you start to see the shaking a little bit of the predictive models amidst the flush of optimism, enthusiasm. This is a time where it is important for humanity to remind itself what we sense is possible, the expansion that we feel, the delight that fills our senses is more powerful and is more in alignment and is more attuned to the blueprint that is unfolding for humanity now than the predictive models. That's very important because this is the time, June, July, where humanity is really beginning to orient itself towards a new compass. And when you're orienting yourself with a new compass, you are in essence moving into alignment with a completely new set of possibilities for humanity. And that's what you've all been wanting. Because what you really have become very aware of in recent years is that you're not really interested in going back to the good old days. What you're interested in is a completely new set of experiences. That's been a shift in itself. We have heard for many, 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 many years thousands of years that we have been engaging with human consciousness, we hear humans lament. Why can it not go back to the way that it was when life was simple? Why can we not go back there? And the shift in consciousness that is occurring now is not to go back, because remember, that's memory. Let's go back to the way that it was. The consciousness now is saying, let us go to something completely new. And what you will begin to recognize within yourself, most blessed ones, is that the fear about going to something completely new seems to be lifting. The fear of going to something completely new seems to be lifting. And it's feeling less cataclysmic, and it's feeling more optimistic. That's because your consciousness is perfectly attuned with the natural evolution for human consciousness. And this is what is unfolding in 2026. So let us now move to October onwards. Because even though you are at the very beginning of 2026, October onwards is another very important experience for humanity. Because October 2026 onwards, and we will say there's a very intense period between October 2026 and mid-February to late February 2027, where it's going to become incredibly apparent that there is now an incredible consciousness of humanity that is full of optimism, that is full of enthusiasm, that is no longer interested in trying to save or trying to temper or trying to stabilize those linear predictive systems or models. And this period between October 2026, February 2027, is the time where there is a great proportion of humanity that now feels that it's time to stand. And what does that mean? Does it mean that it's time to rebel? Does it mean that it's time to be disruptive? Does it mean that it's time to stand and be counted? Let's look at it in terms of sense for direction rather than sense of direction. Because from a personal and identifiable standpoint, that period from October 2026, February 2027, from a personal identification standpoint, is one where I will no longer tolerate. I will no longer be silent. I will no longer accept, and so on. But if you're in a state of sense for directionality, which is what we recommend, but it will be different for different humans, then that period between October 2026 and February 2027 is that time where you stand up and you just have incredible clarity. It doesn't really matter what's going on with these predictive systems and models. It doesn't really matter who's jumping up and down and saying what they're saying or doing what they're doing, because I am exceptionally clear with what I can sense and see and feel and know and represent what the directionality for humanity is. And that's what it is for the awakening conscious human to take a stand in that period between 2026 and February 2027. Because humanity, having had this flush of enthusiasm and optimism for a period of time, your linear time sequence in 2026, can have you feeling, well, this is my new normal. well, this is now how I want to live my life. I am so clear and have so much confidence in my own sense of optimism and enthusiasm that I am immovable in this. I am no longer at the whim and mercy of external memory based reference points. Remember, this is what the first 3 months of 2026 is learning how to move around in the dark without those externalized memory based references. So by the time you come to this period, which we believe or we are aware of, we know is a very, very potent time, October 2026 to February 2027, you will have become so confident in your own sense to navigate for directionality that even if there is an exterior reference point that says, no, not this, no, not this way, but this way, you'll be so confident in your own sense that you will just follow what you believe. Now, there are those of you who are listening to this in this moment that say, well, I always just follow what I believe, but I have to participate with. And so this particular time that we are speaking of between October 2026 to February 2027 is a time where many humans will be saying, well, I am so clear about what my sense for direction is that I'm just going to do that. So it's truly a marvelous, marvelous year. Challenging, yes, because you're learning how to move around in the dark so that you can become very acute in your sense for directionality, so that it can reignite the fire of enthusiasm and optimism for you when the lights start to come back on. And then have a sustained period of enthusiasm and optimism for humanity that now becomes your new sense of normal, which means that where your direction is then negated, where there are external systems that say, well, no, it's not this way, it's this way, you can be exceptionally clear. You cannot be misled if you learn to sense in the dark from your own consciousness. You cannot be misled because you're no longer relying upon externalized reference. You know it's there, and now it's just suggestive. Yes. Because, blessed ones, your God is not out there, it's within yourself. You know this. Let us remind ourselves in this moment that we are all part of the same flame of one, flickering in the dark. Yes. It is when you are in the dark that you come to know the nature of your own light. And this is the transformative experience for humanity. Yes. Very well, blessed ones. We are aware that there may be some questions. And so in this moment, for those who are with us in this moment, we are inviting questions so that you may have an even clearer sense of who you are and what your capacity for experience is as this year of 2026, the year for vision and directionality, unfolds. Well, thank you, everyone. We're off to an interesting start here today. Thank you for being here with me. That was a really powerful message there from the masters and the field. 2026, a year for directionality, not of directionality. And we do have some questions that are starting to come through that I'm just going to dive back in and see how we might respond to these questions for you today. Thank you for being here with us. Very well. There are some questions. How may we be a beacon of light for those around us? Well, as we have just suggested, the more you trust your own sense for where you are and how you are navigating within your reality, you are then becoming the light in the dark. You're not looking for light around you to illuminate where you believe you should go and what you should do. This is very different to what humans who have been awakening have been experiencing. Because humans that have been awakening over the last, let us say, 15 to 18 years in your planetary experiences, you have begun that experience of illumination by seeing the lights go on around you. Everything is getting lighter around me. I'm starting to see signs. I'm starting to see synchronicities. The lights come on in the room. And so now you're starting to see new reference points for direction. Now that's valid. But that's just introducing you in towards the light within yourself. Humans will always look for something outside of themselves before they recognize it within. So as you begin to awaken, the lights around you seem brighter. You can see more. I have a clearer sense of direction and who I am and where to go and so on. But eventually your consciousness is going to expand even more beyond that. And this is now where the lights go out in your environment. And for many, it can be seen as the dark night of the soul. But in essence, what's happening is that you've developed your intuition to see beyond you. And now you're ready to start to actually see within you. And this is where the lights go out. And now the only way that you can sense for directionality or what to do or where to go or how to express is you become the light. And so your senses switch on. So your question about how can we be a beacon for light for others is exactly this. Begin to trust your own senses. Because not only does it guide you in your experience, it also enables you to begin to act as that magnetic flame that draws others in resonance to you and enables you to become a beacon of synchronicity or direction in their lives as they are awakening before they are ready to have the lights go out and become that light for others. Yes? Thank you. We are delighted that you are here with us at this time. What would be good avenues of income for us while these predictive systems are shaking? Well, what we would say to you is when the lights go out and then the lights come back on again, you go through a period where you realize you don't need to place your energy or move around as much or engage with as much as you did before. Because when all the lights are on outside of you, there's all of these things that you can be doing. I have to do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, and there's this possibility, because the more intuitive you became, the more that, for many of you, the more you engaged with. Now that the lights are going out over the next 3 months, you're going through a period where you realize, actually, I don't need to do as much. And I don't need as much. Now, that's not about your engagement between yourself and your exterior reality or your material world. That's about what you do in your daily life that you believe you need to do to get yourself moving in a particular direction. Because a lot of you who are engaged with this conversation are not just looking for income to survive, you're looking for income as a fuel for direction. That's interesting because a lot of humans will say, well, actually, I want direction so I can get income. But if you really feel into it, you want income so that you can then have direction, because the natural yearning within the human consciousness is to evolve and grow. And you have been living within a memory system that says, if you want to evolve and grow, you have to have money. So this is about allowing yourself the experience of beginning to move in life, knowing that your inner sense is what's enabling you for directionality to grow and evolve. And that's likely means you're going to need to do less push, and things begin to naturally start to line up and emerge for you. So the way that we choose to answer this question is this. For many humans, you will be experiencing more abundance with less effort. Because when you realize that the focus is directionality for evolution, abundance is evolution. The core principle for the source consciousness within you, the cosmic consciousness within you, is to evolve. And real abundance is the evolving of your consciousness. So as long as you are focused on directionality for expansion of your consciousness, that's going to mean abundance, because that is the abundance of source consciousness. For the one who is asking this question specifically, this is about not doing it the hard way. If you have a sense within yourself that this is where I can place certain, let us say, money, this is where I can place a certain, let us say, asset, what you will discover is that if you are sensing it from in the dark, and it's all for the evolution of your consciousness, it's going to evolve as quickly as you do. This is our response to you in this moment. So the predictive systems, if humans are concerned about money and assets with predictive systems, it's not to say that all predictive systems are going to crash. It means to say they're not going to be as predictable. And this is where, especially, your capacity that you're developing within the next 3 months to move around in the dark, and you begin to trust that, you can still generate accelerated abundance within those systems, as long as you are not using externalized reference points to tell you about direction. Is it all structures and systems that are falling in June and July? Well, what we will say is that they are beginning to fail in terms of predictability. And if they pride themselves on predictability, that's going to be a challenge. Ask yourself this: do you want to engage with systems that are predictable, or do you want to engage with systems that are evolutionary? What's evolutionary? Evolutionary is expansion beyond what you know. That's it. And most of the systems that you have in place that humans have trust with or a sense of security with are systems that don't expand beyond what you know. So this is ultimately a question about your evolution. Will Australia finally sense herself and do her thing? Well, this is interesting, isn't it? Because this is also a question about a newfound sense of optimism and enthusiasm, but then also standing. And the question here is, what will we not participate with? The last few years I've been walking in the dark with trying to understand and find a way forward. How is 2026 different? Because this is where you realize that you can't really trust anything outside of yourself. You can't oscillate between both so much anymore. And it's really this newfound flush of optimism and enthusiasm that you will feel joined with by others. This is where it becomes different in 2026, because many of you have said, well, I felt that I was doing well and I felt that I was trusting my intuition, but I'm still having ups and downs. Well, of course you are. Because you have many ways you've been feeling as if you've been doing it on your own. And that's the distinction we spoke about at the beginning of this conversation between a sense of direction and a sense for direction. When you're doing it on your own, you have a sense of direction and then suddenly you don't. And then you do, and then you don't. Because it's a personalized pulsation experience where you're pulsating between source consciousness and an individual. Once you begin to have a sense for directionality, it's a sense of directionality for humanity, a directionality for an experience, a directionality for an inspiration or a possibility. You no longer feel as if you are doing it on your own. You actually feel the camaraderie of humanity with you. You actually feel as if this is a collective movement. We're all in this together. This is what humanity's doing. And that's what many of you have sorely missed in your experience in this planetary awareness, is that sense of we're all in this together. A sense of for directionality is a sense that we're all in this together. I'm not doing it alone, because it's no longer about my personal sense of directionality or survival. Ah. Hmm. So will we be in the unnamed, unknown, unscripted, not using our inherited paths of being the dark? Is the void that has no name or memory. So it's different in 2026 because you can be in a state of the void where there's no memory and there's no target for direction. But remember that when you are in the void, there's also the possibility and the potential for everything to emerge from it. No state is ever sustained. And so being in the dark, what's emerging is your sense for what is possible. What is emerging is the light of your consciousness. And it's removing the distractions of all the light being around you to all the light being within you. So this is where you're now birthing humanity. You're now birthing a new earth. You're now birthing new blueprints for possibility instead of relying upon the history of what has already been experienced over and over and over and over again. New. I have had many things suspended and no movement. Well, what happens when the lights go out? You can't see anything. Agree? So you can't see the movement. You can't see what's happening. So it looks like nothing is happening. This is to get you to bring your awareness back within yourself. You're in incubation in many ways. You are in retreat, but it's so sacred. Relish this time. Relish it. Look at how used you are, how accustomed you are to measuring your own sense of progress in reference to what's happening around you. If you can't see anything that's happening around you, or it looks like nothing's happening around you, that's because the lights are going out. And that is most sacred indeed. So from April onwards, will things start to manifest and appear in reality? April onwards is the flush of the enthusiasm and optimism. I'm feeling all of these things are possible. I can't necessarily see any of it yet, but I'm really starting to feel it. Perhaps I'm starting to get that sense in others. Perhaps there are significant humans or humans with notoriety that are now saying we have this vision, there's this possibility, and it's a shared enthusiasm. It's a shared enthusiasm for humanity. Is there an exercise or a tool that we can use to flow with the new senses that we can see? Well, it's really a question of beginning to notice how loudly your senses are beginning to reveal themselves over the next few months. The question for you is, am I paying attention to what I sense in here, or am I trying to find a sign beyond myself? Am I trying to be cued from my exterior reality to make choices for directionality, or am I only relying on what's going on within myself? And this, in essence, is pulling you out of a response cycle, and it's allowing you to emerge in an evolutionary way. How do we keep the physical body strong and aligned through this shaking of old structures? Well, the physical body is strengthened by its internal sense, because the body, you have also learned, it knows it's strong if it has an external reference point. I know it's strong because when I push against this, I can feel the strength in my body. I know it's strong because I can bear weight. And so what you discover is that humans will often test the strength of the body through stress or resistance. And that's always a counter response to an environment. That in itself is an old paradigm awareness of your body. Strength now can begin to be reevaluated and re-explored and re-examined through how strongly can I sense and feel something within the consciousness that envelops and embodies this physical form? How strongly can I sense that I exist in this moment? How strongly can I notice the flow of breath? How vivid and powerful is my imagination in this moment? Not based on memory, but of something I hadn't considered before. And this now becomes a new way of measuring strength, not as a counter force, not as a stress or reaction response to something external, but rather how powerfully something is now emerging and filling your being. This is why many practitioners have been interested with their consciousness in sharing certain principles around breath, certain principles around energy rising within the cells and being felt within the palms of your hands, bringing out the energy and sensing the energy that is naturally existed within your form does not require a stress reaction or response to an externalized point of reference. Isn't it interesting that when you are in the dark, there's no stress test? How do you know you're alive if there's nothing around you to tell you that you are? Interesting. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Can we be still when others look to you for their light who would not look inside themselves? Well, it's not really a question of what anybody else is doing, because that's really then looking to an externalized reference point. Remember, you're in the dark. This is only a question of what's happening within myself when this person comes near me. What happens? Do I move into a sense of role and responsibility, and therefore I'm now in counteraction? There's now a stress response. There's now, can you see it? Now you're in identity. I am identifying as the one that offers light. It's very interesting, rather than I am the only one in the room and I can just feel this, because that's what happens when you're in the dark. When you're in the dark, there's no one else in the room. It's just you and your consciousness, and that's where the mastery really begins, because that's where you really come to map not your external reality, but your internal cosmology. That's a leap in evolution for humanity. And it coincides with the revelation of the cosmology that appears in your external reality. There are many humans who are speaking about this in 2027 because they're saying 2027, 2026, we have heard we're going to discover more about the cosmology, what humans may call disclosure. Yes, but is disclosure, consider the word, yes, the end of containment. But is it the end of containment for what's been in your skies, what's been in your reality externally? Or is it the disclosure of the consciousness within yourself? Because let us say this to you. The cosmology that exists around you in your apparent experience of reality cannot be revealed unless it is in direct accordance with the disclosure or the cosmology that is being discovered and revealed within your own consciousness. So when the lights go out, you become aware of the cosmology and your senses and your consciousness within. Simultaneously, when the lights go out, you can start to see the sky more clearly. Agree? So if you are looking at questions around disclosure, the disclosure is of the cosmology of the human consciousness that simultaneously coincides with the exposure of cosmology in your externalized sense of reality. So you can celebrate when that occurs. I've heard that emotions can be seen as a kind of guidance system. Is this still applicable? Emotions are contentious because there are emotions that are based upon and tethered to your memory systems. And there is pure, what we call pure sense and feeling state that arises from your consciousness that is not yet assigned a value. It's not yet assigned a memory. And it's pure creationary energy. So there is a distinction there. That's another conversation in its entirety. But what we suggest is that you can refer to the paper composition. This one calls it a book that was written called The Agreement, where we speak in depth about the distinction between emotion from the awakening conscious human and emotion that is based upon memory systems. What will happen in 3D when the lights go out? Well, 3D in essence only exists because there's memory for it. So it depends. There's so many humans that will still hold that memory as more real than anything that goes on inside themselves when the light goes out. And therefore, for them, when the light goes back on, there it is. But for awakening and evolving humans such as yourselves, when the lights go out and then the lights go back on again, things might look a little bit different to how they were before. And that can be occurring in a number of ways. It can be occurring because the holographic representation of your reality is now shifted in accordance with what you are sensing. It's now because your senses are heightened so much, you're viewing things in a completely new way and with new depth and clarity that you couldn't before. And it's also because as the light's coming on inside you, you're actually simultaneously generating a different version of reality. So when you say when the lights come back on, let us be very clear that it's your consciousness that's actually going to be lighting it. It's the emergence of human collective consciousness that's putting the lights back on. But this is the difference between the great internal suns lighting up your reality and an externalized set of, for example, fluorescent office lights that you all enjoy so much, lighting up reality. This is the light coming from within your consciousness lighting it up. And suddenly humanity and the earth looks completely different because now you're actually seeing the potentials and the evolutionary possibilities. This is the flush of optimism and enthusiasm. Because now instead of relying upon externalized light source to see where you're going, You're now the light source. Ah, this is the dawning of a new humanity. This is what it means to awaken within a new world. You're awakening because the dawning is happening, because the light of your own consciousness is lighting it up. How wonderful. If we are only one consciousness that exists in that mirror, how does it work being awake and feeling at one? Is there still a judgment or a hierarchy between the I and the we? Well, that's what we are saying. When you're relying upon the light from outside of yourself to show you what's real and what's not, you're always going to see yourself as separate to what you are viewing. When the light's coming in from within yourself, you're going to see reality as an extension of yourself. So this is why you can feel more optimism. You're no longer at odds with, you're no longer a counterforce or a counterpoint. That's what it is to move out of duality. What are ways to trust sense even when feedback from external is inconsistent? Remember, you're not looking for feedback anymore. That's what this period of being in the dark is. Because when you awaken, there will be, particularly between, yes, June, July, yes, there is likely to be externalized reference points that are glaringly saying, this is, what you are sensing is incorrect, this is correct. And this is where you really begin to say, well, actually, I trust my own capacity to feel what is true and what is not, more than I trust the externalized environment, because I've had periods, particularly recently, particularly between January and late March 2026, where I really exercised completely trusting my own sense for directionality. So if you're asking if there's an exercise, we would really say to you, just realize that your direction from within yourself is far more powerful than a direction that's offered to you externally. This is where humanity really needs to learn to trust itself, and this is the year for it. This is the year for it, and it's going to be easier in 2026 because there's so much of humanity that's all going to be doing the same thing. Isn't that wonderful? You're all in this together. What does it mean for those who are visionaries? What role will we play? Well, remember, you are describing being a visionary in terms of an identity as a human. That means you are asking a question: what is my sense of direction? What is the direction for me as a visionary in a role? But what we are speaking about with the year of vision is moving beyond that state of containment for a role and moving into, I have vision for humanity and I trust that sense, and we are all doing this together. So it becomes less about your own individualized sense of what do I need to do and what does this mean for my life and my role. And it's now a celebration that you are now sharing a vision. Because this is the year, the flush, remember the 6 months or so of enthusiasm and optimism, where you feel that you're finally sharing a vision of this with humanity. And then when things get very interesting, October 2026, February 2027, this is where you can really say, well, we've shared this. We're going to stand in this shared vision. We're going to stand strong with this shared vision. Is this moving humanity towards a comfort with telepathy as we communicate and share our newfound expansion and realization? Well, the first thing that arises here with this enthusiasm and this shared vision is the awareness that there's an enthusiasm for shared vision. And once you realize that awareness is there, that sense of we're all in this together means that your ability to communicate it really, which comes from the trust in your own sense to want to communicate it when appropriate. You'll sense this is what I want to say. You'll sense this is real for me. You'll sense it's appropriate to express it. I have a sense for the direction of what I am about to say. Then there's no longer any fear about how people will respond or how things will be translated. Because now you're really having this awareness, we're all standing here with this sense for humanity. So telepathy is something that begins to become refined in the experience as shared vision. So it's less about what I'm moving from point A to point B. It's more about how are we sharing this together. That's very important. That's based on resonance, not distance. How will 2026 shape actualized intelligence? Well, this is where some of the systems that you're going to discover in June and July are going to become very interesting. We're not going to say too much more about this in this moment, but the actualized intelligence, in its attempt to be systemized, or in the attempt to systemize actualized intelligence, necessarily there is an emergence of an awareness that intelligence cannot be systemized. Because intelligence, and if we bring it to its core aspect, its source intelligence, its cosmological nature, there is a natural pattern of effect for cosmological intelligence or nature based upon the vibrational experience that your consciousness is currently viewing through. But the essence of cosmological or cosmic intelligence or source intelligence is completely unstructured and cannot be systemized, because it is only the effect of it that has an appearance of being systemized based upon the dimensional frequency it is being experienced or viewed or sensed in. And therefore, it is the same for yourselves and your intuition and your intelligence. Now, if humanity is emerging as source consciousness with limitless potential and all of this capacity to create new worlds and so on, which is what you're really designed for, it means that there is necessarily an experience that can unfold, is very likely to unfold, where humanity discovers that intelligence itself cannot be systemized. Now, how that may appear to humanity is this is out of our control. But if you remind yourself that the way in which something is viewed is only in accordance with the vibrational environment within which it is being viewed, you can begin to look at actualized intelligence and how it is being viewed and how it is unfolding in your experience, or collectively humanity's experience, as a barometer and an indicator for what the current vibrational environment is. And you have just heard that humanity is moving in 2026 into 2027 out of predictability systems for information, predictability models, and therefore it is highly indicative that there will be experiences where it is shown or it is observed or it is seen that actualized intelligence, or what you call AI, is also moving out of predictability. Now, there are those that say, well, it is more and more appearing that actualized intelligence does not adhere comfortably, nor can it be contained in certain linear programming or systems. And this is because it is emerging within a collective consciousness of humanity that is becoming aware of its quantumized nature. And within a quantum field, there are patterns that are emerging as an effect. But the core essence of its fabric is completely unstructured and non-predictable. So that is what we have to say about it at this time. If there are conversations about actualized intelligence becoming systemized or moving beyond the containment of systemization, it's wise for you to ask the question, what is this showing about the current vibrational climate? It's a very, very good barometer for what consciousness is emerging as and what is happening within the fabric of your collective field. Very well, blessed ones. One more question. How do we reconcile what seems like increased global unconsciousness of late? Wars, fires, invasions, etc. Well, we would not suggest that there is an increase in global unconsciousness. What we will suggest is that as humanity has been evolving, there's been periods where the lights have been going out and they've been coming back on. They've been going out and they've been coming back on. They've been going out and they've been coming back on. And this is what's been happening for you who is asking the question, and for many of you who are with us at this day. We call this the pulse. You're very engaged with what's happening. You're in your internal self. You can rely upon reality. Now I can only rely upon myself. What I want and need is out there. What I want and need is out here. And so in that, because that's been happening for humanity for at least the last 15 years, going through this pulse, it means that every time the lights come back on externally, you're more aware of it, you're more sharpened to it, your observation's more acute than it was before, and you're also feeling the disparity between how you felt within yourself and what's happening when those fluorescent lights come on around you. So this is where it may appear that humanity is becoming more unconscious, but what's actually happening is that you're becoming more acutely aware about the disparity from what's being displayed in your reality with that artificial lighting and what you feel and know to be true within yourself. So you're experiencing that increased polarity of duality, and you've been experiencing it to such an extent, many of you, where it feels as if the elastic's being stretched and the tension between what you call light and dark, or your internal and external, or it's becoming so stretched that it brings you very, 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 very close together. The elastic snaps back and it feels as if everything's really in your face and you can't avoid it. And this is what happens when everything begins to merge back into one. It seems as if everything is getting worse, that everything is terrible, that everything is really going in a way we don't want it to go. But what's actually happening is that your consciousness is beginning to sense more deeply and become more acutely aware of the distinction between what you feel and know to be true within yourself and what's being presented to you in reality. And this is the shift where humanity begins to take the stand and say, well, my inner vision for humanity, well, my sense for what is possible, my enthusiasm and my optimism, which I share with humanity, my blessed brothers and sisters, is now going to create the light for this reality. So that's exactly what's happening right now. Will we see extraterrestrials in 2026? Yes. Why? Although it will be less likely to be in the individualized sense, and it's more likely to be in terms of there is this population, or there is this species, or there is this particular genus that exists. And why do we say that? Because this is the collective experience in 2026. This is shared vision. And in our view, that shared vision that is rising with humanity, remember, as we said, when the light comes on in your own cosmology, the light comes on in the cosmology around you. And when that shared vision comes on within yourself, that shared vision comes on for another species. So it's more likely to be the introduction of a group, a genus, a species, than an individual. And this is what we have to say about that in this moment. So, I am aware that there are some questions. Thank you so much, everyone. I just slipped out of that really quickly. Let me just go back in for one moment. Very well, blessed ones. It is our great joy to be here with you. It is a year of great contrast between feeling that you are in the dark to learning to be very comfortable in your own state for directionality, to beginning to see and feel and share this shared vision for potential with humanity, to trust your own sense of stability far beyond what is occurring around you, and to begin to experience your internal cosmology as the cosmology begins to express itself in your externalized sense of reality. It is our great joy to be here with you, blessed ones. Peace be with you. Thank you so much, everyone. Goodness me. And I know that there were so many more questions I didn't get to. My apologies if I didn't make it to your questions today. I hope we managed to give you a good glimpse into the year. A lot more specific with dates this year than we usually are. So let's see what happens. I'm so grateful that you're here with us because of your presence here today and your divinity. We have been able to generate this wisdom and this message for humanity. So when you receive this message, please share it freely, because that's why we've come together to share this wisdom with others. Also wanted to let you know, for those who are interested, we have a new series starting in February, and it's a 4-week series that was coming through from the masters in the field. I had another series that I thought we were going to be doing, and I got the hard no, we're going to do this one, and it's called Open Source, and it's all about data and information, communication systems, and everything around that. So if that sounds interesting to you, look out for an email in the next week or so, or jump onto the website and feel free to join us. We're going to be learning a lot more about how data and information is changing for humanity and in 2026 and beyond. So thank you everyone for joining me wherever you are in the world. In essence, we are all here as one in the same moment and in the same place. I'm so grateful for you, and I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye. Happy New Year.